It is time, Mark II Escort time. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. I've opened up the garage door to let some light in because we're working on my Mark II Escort in this week's video. Now, I get comments pretty much daily about this thing, asking where the update is, where's the next video, and here it is. I have actually got some fresh motivation after being on holiday for a week. Now, whilst I was on holiday in Greece, this gave me the perfect opportunity to re-evaluate my situation and the cars I've got. If you watched my previous video, I have sold my VW T4 now, and I plan to sell 2 more of my vehicles, mainly so I can free up a bit of room and a bit of time, more importantly, to work on my dream car. And also, whilst I was laying on the sunbeds with the sun beaming down at me, topping up my tan, I was enjoying a couple of classic Ford's latest magazine copies, and they really inspired me. They've definitely boosted my motivation for my Escort project. Realistically, it is my dream car. I've got it, I just need to get it built. And that leads me on to what next? What have we got to do to the Mark II Escort project? Now, for people that are new to the Mark II Escort project videos, this is my 1977 Mark II Ford Escort. It's a 4-door because that is the exact model that I wanted. Now, I purchased this back in December 2021, hoping to get it on the road within the first year or possibly the second year, but we're now coming up to the 3rd year that I've owned this and it's still not on the road, but I have done plenty to this. There's probably too much to explain in this short intro, but I've converted it from left-hand drive to right-hand drive. It's now completely done. There was quite a lot involved in that. I've completely built up this 2.1 Ford Pinto. I've got a naughty cam in there as well. I've also got a few other upgrades. I've got the Type 9 gearbox, and I've completely resprayed the engine bay with the help of one of my good friends. Now, I've also got brand new suspension at the front. I've got uprated brake discs and brake calipers. I've also got uprated hubs. I've got plenty of goodies under there. Most of the underside has been fully stripped back to bare metal. It's been epoxy primered, seam sealed, and it's also had a couple of coats of my tinted undersill. Now, as for the inside, this has also been painted. I stripped it all back to bare metal, just like I've done with the underside. Epoxy primered it, seam sealed it, then I painted it body colour, and it's now got its carpet over the top. I have got the pedals in there that are bolted up as well, and I colour coded the dash. Now, that is just a brief rundown of what I've achieved on my Mark II Escort so far. There's been lots of hours put into the project so far, especially underneath, scraping off the old undersill to try and find any rust or rot, and I did find a bit. But I now need to carry on and basically progress with the project. Now, bringing you guys up to speed a bit, what I have done recently in the past couple of videos is fit my nice shiny new front suspension, and I have also fitted the brake servo and the tower along with the pedal box. That was all that was covered in the past few episodes, and at the end of them I explained that I still need to run my brake lines and I need to run my fuel lines, but this is something that I've been putting off because I have left part of the Escort untouched. Now, the section I'm talking about is the rear end of the Escort. I have not touched that in my ownership. So that goes for the axle, the rear arches, and all the rear suspension pretty much. I want to renew that and refresh it before I run them new brake lines and fuel lines, because there's no point in me trying to make brake and fuel lines and then running them over old undersill. But that basically brings me on to what I'm going to do now. I need to roll the Escort out of the garage and I need to turn it all the way around and basically push it back in front first, because what I'm going to be doing is jacking up the rear of the Escort so I can get under there and basically give the rear end the same treatment I've done to the front. And this is basically just a realistic project. Because the garage is quite tight, I haven't managed to get to the rear of the Escort. It is basically butted right up to the back wall. So when I was doing the underside, I basically just decided to stop here. So what we've got to do first today is unbury the Mark II Escort. I say unbury, that's a little bit dramatic. It's only got a couple of things leaning on it. Escort out, turned around and back in, then we can see what we're dealing with. It did take a little bit more manoeuvring than I thought it would, but we've got the Mark II Escort back in the garage and it's facing the opposite way. I think I might need to move it over ever so slightly towards the wall, just so it gives me a bit more space to work with. And I have accumulated quite a few parts and boxes behind the Escort. Yeah, I need to sort through them. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the Escort jacked up at reasonable height so we can get the wheels off and I can show you guys what the rear section actually looks like. I'd just like to introduce this week's video sponsor, Autodoc. Now, we've been working with them for a couple of months now and the feedback from you guys has been great because they are Europe's leading online retailer for car parts. They stock over 4 million parts and the app could not be easier to use. All you have to do is click add car and enter your registration for the vehicle you're looking to get some parts for and it will automatically come up with that vehicle. Now once selected, I just need to search what I'm looking for. So let's go for engine oil. And as you can see from the top of the screen, there is so many different brands to choose from. This is one of my favourite parts about Autodoc, is that you can choose from all of these brands. Now, we're going to choose one and add it to our basket. Now that's in our basket and we've proceeded to the checkout, all I need to do is scroll down here and where it says coupon, I've got a cheeky discount for you guys. Enter Mitch5 and you will receive 5% off your full order. It couldn't be any more simple to order on the Autodoc app. It really is that straightforward. Now their goal is to provide high quality car parts at affordable prices. So what are you waiting for? Enter code Mitch5 at checkout today and grab yourself some car parts. The Escort is jacked up now and I've removed both of the rear wheels. And to be honest with you guys, I don't think I've ever really looked at the rear ends in too much detail. Because I've been focusing so much on the front of the car, I've really neglected to look and kind of delve into the rear section. So I've got my torch set up and this is how the rear of the Escort is looking. There's plenty of black undersill, probably loads of layers that people have added in the past, which is a huge problem for me because I just can't stand layers and layers of undersill. You really don't know what's hiding under there. As you can see, all the leaf springs and the axle is nice and flaky. So that all needs to be stripped off because we want this rear section looking just like the front. I have actually just put an Instagram story out sort of explaining that I'm going to be cracking on with the rear section, and people have been asking me like, haven't I already done that? But no, as I say, I stopped at the rear passenger doors, as you can see, and everything else from there backwards still needs working on, so still plenty to go. But I couldn't have carried on this project and ran the brake lines and ran the fuel lines without tackling the rear axle. I've got a nice neat array of parts which I will be using with the project that are stacked up here, but I've also got plenty of parts that are in the boot. Now some of these parts are still left-hand drive that I need to flog and get rid of, and other parts I just don't know whether I need to use or will come in handy with the rest of the project. I've got stuff like these original circular lights, but because the headlight bulb isn't removable, once they're gone, they're sort of scraps, so I'm not quite sure if I should just bin stuff like that. Also got some lowering springs for the front suspension, which I won't be using because I've got coilovers, and I've got plenty of goodies in here. As for what next, I'm going to be removing the rear axle, so it's held on with the shock absorbers which go into the back of the Escort, and it's also held on with them leaf springs, so I'm going to start disconnecting some bits and bobs and hopefully we can get the rear axle down as one unit. Then we can start to strip it apart, work out what we need to keep, work out what we need to restore, and work out what we need to buy. Hey, there we go. That's the other one done. Just going to nip them, well, just going to put them on a couple of threads just for now, but at least I know they're both loose. I'm just trying to work out the shackles at the rear of these leaf springs. So basically one bolt goes through and into the boot, and then the other one comes through on this lower section, and I think they just both separate. But on the other side, on this off side, I can't really get down there because the fuel tank's in the way, so I'm gonna have to remove the fuel tank. That'll be coming out anyway to paint it, because I've already released this bottom bolt, but it just won't separate. So yeah, I need to undo the top bolt, which the nut is just hiding in there, and we should be able to separate these and get the axle down. Tank has been nudged out of the way. It was just held in with 2 bolts and a couple round by the filler neck, and I'm managing to just about get my ratchet in there and undo this last bolt. Bit of a tight one, but it's cracked. All it is just basically 2 metal brackets, and then they've got pins on them. This pin goes this way and this other pin goes the other way, basically. Should be able to show you guys once it's all completely removed. I've got nothing else attached. All the brake lines are disconnected anyway, because that's how I bought it. It doesn't have any fuel lines running along it. The handbrake cable is connected, so we'll have to just disconnect that slightly. But if we can get this down just a little bit at first, that would be nice. Yep, it's coming down ever so slowly. There we go. Ah, okay. I see one more thing we need to undo. Undo? Undo. That is the anti-roll bar. Right, I've undone the anti-roll bar bushes. Whether it's going to still come out, I don't know. There we go. That'll do. It's getting caught on the shocks, but I can wiggle it around. Right, just need to drag it out. And that is one MK2 Escort rear axle. In true MK2 mixed fashion, I've had a little bit of a clear up and a sort out. Because the axle had everything on it, I thought it's best just to get the majority off of it so we can just work a little bit more easily. So I've got the leaf springs here. I have labelled them offside and near side. I don't know whether they are sided, so it's always good to label them up. We've got the shocks and the bottom plates there. They're labelled up as well. And I've also just separated bits and bobs like the U-bolts, the bushes, the lowering blocks, which I don't have a clue on the dimensions. I'd have to measure them up. Most of this stuff I'll probably be getting new, but it's just worth sorting it out and arranging it. Now I've also removed the anti-roll bar, and on this side I was a bit puzzled because it's got this threaded bar that the bolt goes into, but what I think that's for is I think that's part of the exhaust hanger, so could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is. So yeah, that's all stripped down as well. And over here we have my axle. Now I need help from you guys because this car is originally from Portugal. So is this axle any different to a standard one that you'd get in a MK2 Escort? I hear English axle being thrown around quite a lot, but I don't know whether that is just a name of a different axle. So yeah, this is how it's looking. We've got all the brake pipes on there, which I'm really happy about. They sort of flow around the axle, and then there's a join just over there, and then you've got this one long brake pipe that goes all the way over there. So I'm going to look forward to replacing them with some brand new copper ones. And yeah, we've got the handbrake linkage here, the drums and the wheel cylinders that all need stripping apart, as well as the diff. Also, whilst I was stripping the axle apart, I had these 2 metal rings pop out. Now, I'm not too sure where they've actually came from. The only way I can think is on top of these leaf springs, I think, possibly. But yeah, not quite 100% where they go. Now, I've just popped underneath the MK2 Escort to show you guys what it's looking like. There is the rough line that I went up to with my tinted undersill, and here is the section that I'm now going to have to bare metal. all of this section and the boot floor. I'm also doing both of the rear wheel arches. So yeah, I've got my work cut out again, but this is just something that needs to be done with my projects. I just don't cut corners, and I knew I had to do this. But I tell you what, I'm really surprised how easily I've managed to get this rear section stripped out. There's not much to it when you sort of get down to it. Really glad that I took the axle off in one piece. It was a bit of a pain in the arse to remove the leaf springs, but I'm just glad it's all off now and I can start to strip apart this axle. I've now got the axle up on a set of axle stands, and I've just taken off the drum on this side just to take a closer inspection at the rear shoes and the wheel cylinder. And I tell you what, all looks good under there. There's quite a lot of meat left on the shoes, and the rear wheel cylinder doesn't seem to be leaking at all, but these are all going to be replaced anyway. I'm not going to be refitting any of that. Now, just taking a look around the rest of the axle, I'm fairly happy with the condition. I still do need to ID this axle though. I'm really not sure whether it is a English axle or not, so hopefully some of you guys in the comment section below can clear that up. But what I'm going to do now, before I strip any other bits off, is I'm going to remove the diff. And the reason I'm removing the diff is just basically to check the condition of it, and also try and identify what diff this actually has as well, because I'm still not sure what route I want to take with the differential. So it would be great to get that removed, check it out for condition, see if it can go again, and also see if it's the right one that would suit my application. I'll tell you what would be a really good idea. I'm going to get a drain bowl because I reckon there's going to be some oil coming out of this diff. That's better. The diff is currently draining out its oil, and I was just trying to get it off, but then I remembered the half shafts are still in there. So let's remove both of the half shafts, and then we can get the diff removed as well. I thought it'd be a little bit harder than that, but I've undone all the bolts and I've just popped out this half shaft. I have actually put a couple of bolts back in the diff just for now, so it's not under any tension or pressure when I'm removing both of these. Lovely stuff. That's one of them out. Well, this side has got a spring missing already, just as I was praising the other side. It's got at least one spring missing, so... But someone has been in here because, well, they've attempted to fit the longer studs, but they haven't been sort of sent home enough. They've got a bit of a gap at the back of them. So yeah, this is, well, it definitely needs my attention, doesn't it? This one needed a little extra persuasion, but it's finally out. Right, now that the half shafts have both been removed, I'm going to take out, yeah, it's basically falling out already. Just going to take out the two nuts that I held on the diff with, because I just put them back on as a bit of a safety measure really. I didn't want to put too much tension on the diff whilst I was pulling them half shafts out. And that's the other one, and here we go. It should now come off. I say it should. There she is. There she is. Lovely jubbly. I'm glad that the rear axle strip down is well underway. Now, what I'm going to do now is take off the rear shoes and the cylinders. I'm going to basically detach them with the whole backing plate. So I've just got to remove the handbrake cable, and then there's two brake lines this side and just one on the other side. And then we can just start to strip a little bit more of this apart, and then I can have a look at that diff. "20 minutes or so have passed by, and I've managed to get the Mark II Escort's axle pretty much stripped down to nothing. I've got the brake lines on there still, but I'm going to take them off with a little bit more caution. I don't want to bend them out of position because I am going to try and copy them exactly how they are now. I've also left stuff like the anti-roll bar brackets on there just for now. They'll probably be going to get shot blasted and powder coated with the axle. And I do now have the diff sitting on the floor. Now, I'll be completely honest with you guys, I'm struggling to identify this. I don't actually know where to start, if I'm completely honest. So yeah, if some of you guys could give me some tips maybe in the comment section below. I know that it hasn't been welded. It's not a welded diff. No one's done something silly like that in there, because them gears are all nice and turning freely. So yeah, if you guys could help me out with this, I would really appreciate that. Following the same principles with the rear axle parts, I have labelled up near side and offside for the half shafts. I've also done the same for both of the rear shoe setups and the drums. Even if we are replacing them, it's always just good to know what side they come from. I have put some rag in where the half shafts go to make sure there's no rubbish that goes in there, but I'm really happy with this progress, and it's quite crazy to see the axle bare. It's really nice and light now, and I can't wait to get this looking brand new again. What the next step is going to be is making a list really of parts that I need to replace. Stuff like the diff I might not need to replace, but I might want to uprate it, maybe possibly to a LSD, I'm not sure yet. And then I'm going to have to section off the parts that need to go and be shot blasted and powder coated, and then other parts I definitely will be buying new, because there's been no expenses spared on this project so far, so I might as well carry on throwing everything left in my wallet at it. And here we are at the end of a Mark II Escort episode. I bet you guys thought you'd never see one again, but I'm so glad that I've jumped back on this project. I'm so glad that I've got my head more focused now on my Mark II Escort. Really exciting to get this rear section done, because then we can carry on progressing with the build, fuel lines, brake lines, etc, etc. It just all works so much better once I've done that rear section. Now, this is my first time rebuilding a Mark II Escort, so I'm not going to know everything, so your guys' input is so important. And if there's anything that you feel you need to let me know or advise me on, whack it in the comment section below. I read every single comment, and I do reply to every single comment. It may take me a couple of weeks, but I do try and get back to every single one of you. And the support and advice given is always highly appreciated. I do just want to give a massive thank you to Autodoc once again for sponsoring this week's video. I'm going to go and start making my shopping lists and working out what I need to buy for my Mark II Escort. But if you did enjoy this video, please do give it a like. And if you like what you see, subscribe to the channel to see more. Thank you all for watching, and until the next one, I'll see you guys later. Would you look at that? Pretty much a fully stripped down axle for my Mark II Fiesta. Jesus Christ, that's going in the bloopers.